In this video, we'll cover lists, which let us store a collection of variables. Lists are sequences, much like strings, but instead of storing characters, lists can store anything. We write them by putting a comma-separated series of values in square brackets. We can make our first list, we'll call it myList, by making square brackets and then starting to put in values. We can put in integers, we can put in floating point numbers, we can put in strings, Singapore and bread, and then as usual, we can use the print function to print it out. Just like with strings, we can access the elements of the list by indexing. myList at index 1 will get the 5.5 value. And we can also do slicing. myList starting at index 0 and going to index 2 gets the first two elements out. These are standard ways of pulling out pieces of any sequence in Python. Unlike strings, lists are mutable, so we can change them. We can change myList at index 3, change it from bread to toast, and then again print the value of myList. So now bread has been replaced with toast. We can even change the type entirely. So if we change myList at index 2 to -100, and then again print myList, we've changed this string Singapore to -100, the integer. Since lists are collections of variables, we'll sometimes want to check if the list contains some specific variable. To do this, we can use the in keyword. 2 in myList returns true. This is a Boolean variable. It only has two states, true and false. So if we check for something that's not in the list, it'll let us know. If we see if tuna is in myList, Python tells us it's not. If we want to know what index a value is at, we can use the index function. Write the name of the list, dot index, and then in parentheses, write the value to find. We'll find the value 2. This tells us that the value of 2 is at index 0, and we can verify that by indexing. myList at index 0 is 2. If it doesn't find the value, it'll give us an error. Again, if we try to find through index the value tuna, Python will give us an error saying that tuna is not in the list. This also works on strings, and with strings we can search for substrings that are longer than one character. If I make a string and say that it is a pretty birdie, we can use animal.index to search for the substring bird. And this tells us that the word bird begins at index 9 of the original string. Lists have some special functions that make it easy to add and remove from the end. The append function will add something to the end of the list. We can take myList and append a new string, spiders. We can also verify that that's been changed in myList. And we can see there are now spiders hanging out in myList. We can also verify that the length has changed. Now the length is 5 instead of 4. The pop function will get rid of the last element in the list, in case you don't like spiders. This is myList.pop, and then again verify that myList has been modified. The spiders are now gone. Finally, if we want to remove an element that we already know exists in the list, we can use the remove function. If we know that -100 is in myList, and it is, then we can use myList.remove -100, and that'll get rid of it. So let's make sure that it's actually gone by printing myList one more time. Lists are useful when you want to store a collection of variables, and especially when you know you'll need to add or remove more elements later on.